All right, today we're going to dive into one of history's most fascinating and frankly, kind of baffling mysteries. It's a wild story of ingenuity, of secrecy, and some seriously complicated logistics, all happening underneath the most elaborate dresses you can possibly imagine. I mean, just look at these things. It all comes down to the central question of this whole explainer, which sounds simple but is actually pretty mind-boggling. How on earth did Victorian women, literally trapped inside these enormous, restrictive clothes, handle one of life's most basic and urgent needs? To really get a feel for this, just try to picture yourself navigating the world's most complicated bathroom situation while wearing what amounts to architectural engineering. Yeah, that's how our source material puts it, and it just perfectly captures the incredibly high stakes of trying to maintain both your hygiene and your dignity in public.
Okay, so to understand the solution, we first have to appreciate the sheer scale of the problem. And believe me, what a problem it was. Let's break down the daily battle that was just getting dressed back then.
The whole process was, well, it was an ordeal. It all started with a simple linen shift. Then came the infamous rib-crushing corset. Over that, a woman would pile on up to 6 petticoats just to get the right volume. But the real masterpiece of this fashion prison was the final layer, a massive steel crinoline cage.
And when I say massive, I am not kidding. These crinoline cages could stretch out to 6 feet in diameter. Just wrap your head around that for a second. Simply walking through a doorway or trying to sit down became this huge strategic maneuver.
So, living inside this mobile architecture, as it's called, forced a complete reinvention of personal hygiene. The old ways of doing things, they just weren't going to cut it anymore.
So how'd they do it? This is where we get to the really incredible solutions they came up with. We're talking about a daily performance that required the grace of a ballerina and the tactical mind of a military general.
And the star of this whole show? You might be surprised. It was the humble chamber pot. But hey, these weren't just any old pots. They were specifically designed with an oval shape, engineered so they could be slid between all those layers of fabric and positioned just right, all without the woman ever having to get undressed. This whole system was built on a foundation of absolute total discretion. You had chamber pots cleverly hidden away inside beautiful furniture. Servants were basically silent ninjas, constantly emptying and cleaning them. And if you were at a big party, there were special retiring rooms that acted as these elegant pit stops with maids ready to help out.
But holding this entire, delicate system together was a revolutionary secret. And it's a detail that often gets totally overlooked. It all comes down to the underwear problem. And this just begs the obvious question, right? With all this complicated maneuvering going on, what about their underwear? How in the world did that factor into this already insane equation? And here is the jaw-dropping twist. The shocking truth is that for a good chunk of the Victorian era, most women, well, they didn't wear any underwear at all. The thinking was that the huge volume of their skirts was all the modesty they needed. You know, right up until a strong gust of wind proved that theory very, very wrong a few too many times.
This, of course, created a new problem, which led to an absolutely genius solution: split crotch drawers. Imagine 2 separate pant legs, only connected at the waistband. This design was pure brilliance. It gave women modesty while still allowing for easy access when using the chamber pot. A real game changer. But the challenges went way beyond just using the toilet. The unseen daily battles of personal hygiene paint an even more vivid and sometimes pretty grim picture of what Victorian reality was actually like. The struggle gets so much clearer when you compare their methods to ours. So instead of toilet paper, they were using old rags, pages from catalogs, even corn cobs. For menstruation, they relied on these homemade tea bandages stuffed with absorbent moss or wool. And forget about doing laundry all the time. The great wash days might happen just twice a year.
And just think about the challenge of menstruation. On her heavy flow days, a woman might have had to change those makeshift pads up to 20 times. And she had to manage all of that in complete secrecy underneath those giant skirts because the topic itself was just completely taboo.
So what's the legacy of all this struggle and clever problem solving? You know, it's easy to dismiss it as just a weird historical fact. But this whole battle for basic comfort actually helped pave the way for our modern world.
Of course, fashion couldn't stay that impractical forever. The enormous crinoline cage of the 1860s slowly gave way to the slightly more manageable bustle in the 70s and 80s. And by the early 1900s, thanks to new things like bicycling and the practical needs of World War I, skirts finally became way more practical.
So in the end, this was never really just about the dresses.
The whole experience had a lasting impact. The struggle pushed for more practical clothes, it highlighted the desperate need for modern plumbing and sanitation, and more than anything, it's just a powerful testament to human adaptability.
So the next time you just casually walk into a modern bathroom, take a second to appreciate the journey. The convenience we barely even think about today was born from these incredible daily struggles. It really makes you wonder, what modern convenience do you take for granted the most?